Hey there, everyone. It's me, elmoviemaster. So today I'm going to be reviewing the Batman movie. This is a spoiler edition, so if you have not seen the movie, I warn you, there will be hell of a spoilers. I am not alone today. I'm here with a good friend, Adam. Adam, thank you so much for being part of this video. I know that you love Batman. We've talked about Batman several times. I know that you grew up with the comics. So I wanted to discuss, and I know you've already seen the movie, so it's going to be perfect. You love this movie, right? Or you liked it?
I didn't love it. I liked
Or
it.
you liked it. Okay. So tell me, what did you like about the Batman 2022?
And similar to what you said in your spoiler free review, I it's similarly very similar. I actually kind of like prefaced it to you prior to you watching because I saw it a few days prior to you. Um, it really is what I consider like a technical masterpiece in terms of like movie making. Like it is beautifully shot. It is wonderfully directed. Music is unbelievable. Michael Giacchino is like to me one of the best modern composers right now, and and performances were great. I really enjoyed everybody's performances. I know a lot of people are saying that Paul Dano went a little over the top with his interrogation scene, but me specifically, I was like, I had goosebumps because I thought he was amazing in it. I've heard personally, I think it's a career-defining performance from Paul Dano, and for the first time in like ages, I was actually kind of like terrified of a Batman villain. So I'm like, this is he's incredible in it. So from that perspective, like I feel like you just need to appreciate, even if you don't like the movie, you can't help but appreciate how well that movie is made from a technical standpoint. I wrote a little thing on Facebook, and I just said like at the very least, it should be probably be studied in like film school because of how well that movie is made on it from that perspective. So there's a lot to like about it if you're just a big fan of movie making in general. I mean, like the music is just like this is the way I described it in my little post is that it just does such an incredible job of creating this incredibly dense, dark, bleak atmosphere from the direction and the cinematography and the music, like all of it together creates this really, really like draining atmosphere that you just like. For me, I got lost in it. Like it was, and because of that, like it's hard to watch because of the atmosphere. I likened it a lot to the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. It does the same exact thing. Music, direction, all of that just kind of creates this incredibly dense atmosphere that you're just like, okay, I'm drained by the end of that movie. So those are the things that I loved about this movie.
I agree on that aspect. The movie is a technical masterpiece. I mentioned this in my spoiler-free review. If you haven't seen the spoiler-free review, there will be a link in the description box so you guys can see it. But basically, I mentioned that the directing, just like you said, magnificent. The opening, this reminds me of a movie that probably David Fincher would have directed. It reminds me a lot of Seven, of Fight Club. It's beautifully shot. The cinematographer of this movie, Craig Sheffer, who was the cinematographer for Dune, for Vice, and Zero Dark 30, photographs this movie very well. It feels like a noir. So I saw one in the comments section on the spoiler free review said, who didn't like the movie either, said, oh, this movie should be a 4.4. I can't go that low because I cannot ignore the technicalities of the movie. I went to school to study film, and we would see shots similar to this. I remember seeing a shot for the movie, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward. What was the name of the movie? I forgot the full title. But anyway, I remember seeing stills, and there's certain shots in this movie that are dark, but they're silhouette, and they're beautiful. You can literally pause it, print it, and put it up on your wall. It's beautiful. The acting, top notch. I cannot say that there's any bad acting in this movie. The music by Michael Giacchino, wonderful. I loved it. It fits the movie very well, and I really liked this version of Gordon. By the way, I liked him.
Oh yeah,
He's
it's
he,
great.
he's really hands on. He's actually in the movie more so than any other Gordon I can think of, with the exception of Gary Oldman in the Nolan trilogy. So And I also liked this new version of Catwoman. Though I still have my biases, I still love Michelle Pfeiffer as
Yeah, I
Catwoman.
totally agree. Like, who you can't not like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. It's just so over the top and fun.
Yes, which goes to another thing. You know this about me. I love. I'm a casual comic book fan. I like these movies, but I like them when they're light and fun. You know, when they don't take themselves seriously. And by the way, I finally got a chance to see Shazam, which you have been recommending me for a while, and I liked it. It's fun. It doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of like Aquaman, which came out a few years ago, which also doesn't take itself seriously. This movie, even though it's not for me, it's not my type of tea. I can still look at it from the perspective of like, hey, I can see why people are enjoying this movie. I can see why people in the theater are having a good time with it because maybe they grew up with a Batman that's very, very dark. It's closer to the origins. But for someone like me, who one of the first Batman movies I saw as a kid was Batman Forever, which I have a strong attachment to that particular Batman.
I don't
That was
disagree.
so that's why I see it from that point of view. So now that I mentioned some of those things, I want to see what aspects of the movie didn't make you love it, make you just like it.
Well, I mean, let me just first off, I forgot to mention this is one of the things that I was really happy about this movie is the fact that like pretty much because why you don't like it is why I love it. It takes Batman seriously, so damn seriously that I'm just like, wow, I'm glad that someone cares about this character that much to try to create the type of Batman we've read in the comics for what 30, 40 years now. I mean, ever since Dark Knight Returns came out in 1986, it's like that gritty, dark, um, fairly realistic Batman, and like the intro sequence alone like captures who Batman is, how he's just a creature of darkness, you know, like if he's not how everybody was like the moment they saw the bat signal they got scared and he literally just walked out of this dark corridor and I'm
Yeah,
like,
that scene where he starts beating him up is that I'm vengeance. Yeah, that part was really intense.
Batman, that's totally Batman. And but now to answer your question, it's to your point, I wouldn't say it's boring, but it's so freaking slow. It's so slow. There's just so many moments, and like 100% agree in that they could have cut like an hour from this movie. 100%. Like at the very least, there are moments of like Arbaz just sitting there like broodingly staring at something for like 5 minutes at a time. Like,
Yes.
that could have been cut down by 2 minutes. Like I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but like I didn't need to watch him stare at something for 5 minutes there. Like no, you could have cut that like for at least a minute. Give me cut out just a minute of that.
Like I understand they're trying to create atmosphere, but he's moving so slow. There's parts apart at the beginning when he's with Gordon and he's saying you're bringing this clown, and he's walking slowly through the
Yeah,
hallway, and I'm
it's
like,
so like there are scenes like the mayor funeral scene, right? That
mhm.
scene where he's just like
Yes, that scene.
I'm like,
Oh,
what? Like, how long is this gonna go for? Like, are you done yet? Like, are you like, you're brooding. I get it, but like, as a movie, that should have been cut. Like, at least a minute of that should have been cut.
and
So,
that's the reason why. And sorry to cut you off. That's the reason why when I see that particular shot of him in the funeral, I'm like, he's walking and behaving just like he did as Batman. That's where I'm
yeah,
having some problems, and we'll get into that. But I cut you off. You were saying?
it's just like it's a 3 hour movie, and you felt the 3 hours 100%. So, like,
Specifically the first hour is where I have the most trouble. Like it gets better towards the third act in terms of pacing, especially the fight sequences,
yeah,
but the first hour could have heavily been trimmed. Specifically, I would say the storyline between Falcone and Catwoman. I thought I didn't personally I did not care too much about that story. um I understand why it was there. Like I did like some aspects, when she's putting on the contact lens and Batman's guiding her. He's behaving very much like a detective.
yeah.
But for the most part, and I liked the performance by the actor who played Falcone. I forgot
John
his name.
Turturro,
Totoro. Yes, that's the actor. He did a very good job. Like that.
wonderfully cast, by the way. Like, I
Yes,
never thought I wanted that because that's perfect as Carmine Falcone. He's
he wa-
perfect.
he was intimidating. Like that sequence at the funeral where he's talking to Bruce and he's telling him, you're even more of a recluse than I am. And I love how Bruce, you think that he would, back down, especially since he knew his father. No, 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 he just steps up to him and then he just laughs at him as he's walking away. I thought that scene was pretty cool. Um, the other aspects of the pacing that I did not like um, is there's three sequences that are very similar. I understand why they did it, but it could have played out differently. Him breaking into that club. It happens three times. It happens once as Batman, actually twice as Batman, then it happens again the third time as Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, we're seeing the same place three times. Um, I get why they did it, but I think it could have been done a little bit differently.
And then he says, "Do you know who I am?" in the same exact voice as Batman. How do
Yes.
you not recognize him as Batman? How do you not see it? Same chin, same mouth, same voice. How do you like? Didn't you put two to two together? You literally saw them within days of one another. Like, are you either you're fucking dumb? Or like you really, it really is like the Clark Kent thing where you take off the glasses and you don't
Yeah.
recognize it anymore. You know?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, like, which I'm not sure how you feel about the bat suit, but I didn't like the fact that you can see his whole face here. Typically, they hide some of it here. So since they were so close to him in that club, and he came back again as Bruce Wayne, I'd be like, bro, weren't you here the other day dressed as a bat? Like, so obvious. I do like his voice as Batman. Like, it's really good. It's way better than Christian Bale. Christian Bale doing the, where's the trigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I never liked it. Actually, I would say it got worse as the movies progressed
It
because
did. It did.
because
Because
in
in
Batman,
Batman Begins, he sounded normal, and then for
yeah,
some odd reason, he just went super hoarse in Dark Knight. I don't know why.
yeah. I mean, there's only one part in Batman Begins where he screamed was when he got that guy who was the rat who worked with Gordon when he's telling him upside down like swear to me. But still, it sounded more normal than all the other Nolan movies. But getting back on track, I
Yeah,
like the voice that Rob Patz did for this particular version of Batman. However, he
yeah,
didn't change it much at all for Bruce.
it did.
So, which also, I want to know how you feel. How do you think his relationship with Alfred is?
It hurts watching it. Like, as a Bat fan, you kind of like, you can't not love Alfred
Hmm.
because, like, he is the father figure that Bruce had growing up. He's not Thomas, but he is the father figure that Bruce needed while he was growing up, while he was coping
Absolutely.
with his parents. So it hurt to watch, and it's just because he's not a nice person to Alfred. Like
No,
there's even a
go for
moment
it.
where yeah, there's even a moment where like, oh, you have to you have to dress like a Wayne. Where are your cufflinks? He goes, and then he hands him his cufflinks. Alfred
Hmm.
hands Bruce his cufflinks, and he goes, "Are you a Wayne?" I'm like, how dare you? How dare you say that to Alfred, the dude who raised you? Like, and plus, like, Thomas trusted Alfred like so much that it was very hurtful, and I don't necessarily love it, but I guess in the end, like it was patched up. Their relationship was mended a little bit once like the truth was revealed, and Alfred like was showed how dedicated he was to Thomas and his wife. I guess it was mended, but like in the end, like I just figured this is the most broodiest, angstiest Bruce Wayne we're ever gonna get. So I'm hoping that if we get a sequel, like their relationship is much better. He at
I
least
hope
treats
so.
fair amount of respect. Because like, come on, dude. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't like that. It caught me off guard because it's the one of the first interactions we get, and I mentioned it very very briefly in my spoiler free review that I didn't like, without ruining in that particular review that I didn't like that interaction. It was out of left field. Like he says, "You're not my father, Alfred." I'm like,
yeah,
damn, that hurt. Like
yeah.
I feel
It's
bad
hard.
for Alfred.
Yeah,
And,
like who doesn't like Alfred?
yeah, he like you said, he raised him since he was a kid. I mean, you can argue that in Batman Begins, there's a sequence where it's a flashback sequence where Bruce is coming back from college, and Alfred is asking him, are you planning to stay? He's like, no, I'm planning to leave. And then he goes, if it was for me, I would have this place, taken down brick by brick. And he says, Alfred, why do you give a damn? He's like, because someone made me responsible, and it works better in that movie because you get to see more interactions and it's a flashback sequence, and you get to see him grow. In this movie, it's just I get it. It's 2 years into being Batman. He's probably seen some shit, but Alfred's been there with him. I'm pretty sure he's the guy who's been taking care of him his whole life. So I hope they do a better job in the upcoming movies because I understand this movie is doing very well, and it's going to have two sequels, and you know,
which I'm happy about. I'm just
yeah,
because DC movies have just been getting such a bad rap recently. Like the Suicide Squad made no money when it was such a good movie.
it was really good. I liked the Suicide Squad, not
Yeah,
the original. That one was a mess. This one I really liked because it was not afraid of having fun. It was not afraid of being funny. I
yeah,
had
and it's
so much.
100% of that movie you would like as a comic book movie. Didn't take
Yeah,
itself seriously, super weird, super silly, and it's just
yeah,
like let's have a ball. And it was so much fun.
and I loved
It, it,
Polka Dot Man in that movie.
it was
It was
great.
it was great.
David Desmalchin, he needs to be a leading man. He's just really good. Um, in the same year that it came out, was it 2020? It was 2021, right? The same year that came out, they did an animated adaptation of Batman: The Long Halloween, and David Dastmalchian is in it as the Calendar Man. And in that book, the Calendar Man, it's a stupid name, but he's reimagined as like this Hannibal Lecter esque character because he says he's behind he's in a cell behind the wall, and Batman goes to him for like advice in that comic book. So he comes off as like this really like incredibly sophisticated serial killer with a lot of weird different ulterior intentions. And Dave Dastmalchian is really good because he plays Calendar Man in that. So I'm like, you just need to give him a leading role. Like he's really that good.
He is.
Um, so the Suicide Squad didn't make them nearly as much money as it deserved. So I'm really sad that it didn't. So I'm like, okay, even if the Batman wasn't that good, at least it's making money because that way WB won't be discouraged from making more movies. Like, and here's the thing, like I get it, you don't like that it's not entertaining and it takes itself way too seriously, but it's also like the most artistic superhero movies we're gonna get is from WB. Look at Joker, like now we have the Batman.
Yeah,
These are
Joker.
yeah,
I liked the first time that I saw it. I was a little off put by it because it's a different version of Joker.
yeah.
But still, I can't deny that performance by Joaquin Phoenix was really good. I had a great time the second time I viewed it, and I appreciate the movie. It reminds me a lot of Taxi Driver, of The King of Comedy. It's whereas the Batman is what if David Fincher directed a comic book movie. The Joker was what if Martin Scorsese directed a comic book movie. And we all know how Martin Scorsese feels about comic book movies. But he was supposed to at one point direct the Joker. He was offered to direct, but he didn't want to do it. So, and we can probably guess why.
But like these are films that we can take seriously, that we can study, that it's going to get nominations beyond the popular vote. That's why I'm like, okay, I'm glad WB is taking these movies seriously. Like they're just not
Yeah,
fun multi-billion-dollar assembly factories anymore. Like let's make
yeah,
some good freaking movies.
yeah. Like even for me, that I didn't like the story, and there's plenty of movies that I feel the same way. Like there's a lot of artsy movies like Tree of Life. I'm not the biggest fan of that movie from Terrence Malick, but it's so well edited and well shot that I like viewing it just for the artistic part of it.
Because
Because
I'm just
movies
thinking
like
about. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just thinking about like how you dislike The Shape of Water, and that movie is very artistic. That movie is. I
that's
love
a
that movie.
yeah, I know, and I get into fights with with Christian, a friend of ours, who he loves the movie, and it's that movie also very similarly. While I don't like the story, I didn't buy the whole love story. I cannot deny the way, not just the way it's shot, the set designing of that movie. The color green is everywhere. It's a beautiful movie.
It's
I
just
cannot
beautiful.
deny that, and the acting in it is well done. There's just certain things from for me that I'm a nitpick. I'm so picky, but that's just the way I am.
You're also
The
a bit of a contrarian, to be fair.
Sure, it's funny because and I'll explain how I'm a contrarian because I can watch something like the movie Seven, which is a realistic, dark, gritty movie, but for whatever reason, my brain, when you put a superhero in the mix, I have a harder time because my brain is like, okay, you have these detectives working, investigating all this stuff, and then you have this guy over here who's dressed as a bat. So when the movie is something like Batman '89, or even Batman Begins, because there's a lot of fantastical stuff there too, I can just say, hey, I can sit back and not take the story so seriously. Sure, it's not a one size fits all rule for me, because I can, say, hey, there's some movies that don't fit the model of what I like, and I can still have a good time with it.
So here's the thing. This is what I like to tell people all the time. Like with the Batman, it's not your modern superhero affair. It's not anything like similar to any. It's not similar to anything Marvel's making right now. It's
No,
not
for,
spectacular.
for
There's not a
once,
ton. Huh?
for once, because for a while they were trying to copy and be like
Exactly.
Marvel, and I'm glad that they're
Yeah.
moving away from that.
Exactly. It's not incredibly spectacular. There's not a ton of satisfying fan service moments. The way I describe it, I've been trying to pitch to people who are like, okay, so what is it about? How is it? Blah blah blah. I like to tell people like, look, it's not really a superhero movie. It's a psychological crime thriller that just happens to have a dude dressed like a bat.
Right.
Really, like that's the only real superhero aspect of it. And even then, like Batman's not a superhero. He doesn't have powers. Like he's technically just like a very good vigilante who dresses like an idiot running around the city. Like that's really all it boils down to. Like that's why it can be as realistic as it can be because he doesn't have powers. And that's what like I try to explain to people who just like, oh no, but he's not a superhero. He's just a hero. Like he's just a driven guy who just wants to stop crime. Too bad he
I
didn't
mean, you
save it.
can argue that the characters of the villains are more.
Interesting.
Yes, Batman has the best lineup of villains of any
Yeah,
superhero or any comic book character. You
yeah.
know, I would love to see at one point. I don't know if they'll ever do this. Like a Clayface in a live action Batman movie.
Probably not under Matt Reeves because that character is way too fantastical and
Yeah,
like it's just not gonna happen.
yeah, probably not. The
No.
Here's the thing. I think that it's way better than the Justice League movie. I
Both the Whedon one and the Snyder one.
Yeah, both of them, both of
Okay.
them. That movie. The more I think of it, like, and I know people are gonna murder me on the comments section. I, while I understand why people love the Zack Snyder version, it's 4 hours long.
It's
I'm
too
not.
long.
It's too long. Yes, if it was trimmed down to maybe like 2:45, 2 hours and 45 minutes, maybe, but that's too long. The
It
Joss
could have been. It
It could
really
have
could.
been. It could have
Yeah.
been, but I'm not a fan of the aspect ratio that he did for that movie. I don't know why he chose that. Um,
He said it
I
was
think
supposed to be for IMAX. I think that was his excuse.
right, but did this play in IMAX?
Sorry?
Did the movie play in IMAX?
I think it did.
It
I
did.
think it did, yeah.
It came out pre-pandemic.
No, but like I think there's a Justice is Gray version that played in some theaters for charity.
Oh, okay, okay. But I mean,
Because there was Yeah,
the
because there
average.
was one where he muted all the color. I mean, the colors already muted, but like there's one where it's straight up black and white, like sepia toned almost,
Okay,
and that played in theaters for charity for like I think for National Suicide Prevention or something like that.
okay, but the average person, I think, watched it at home.
Yeah, because it was
Yeah,
on HBO Max. Why would you
exactly.
go?
Going back to the Suicide Squad, I think what hurt that movie was the same day release, because that was released both in theaters and also on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Had that movie been released pre-pandemic, or maybe even now during the time of the Batman, I think it would have done much better.
It sucks. I went out to watch it in the theater. It was the first movie I saw in the theater for about a year and a half at that point
Wow.
because I'm like, I want to pay money for this movie. Like, James Gunn deserves money. Like, this is a DC movie. I'm going to go watch it because, like, WB needs to know, like, look, there are people who want to pay for this movie. But, the second time I watched it was at home.
I watched it at home. I didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah.
And I agree. James Gunn, he is nailing it. He did. I'm glad that DC needed him, and he's the hero that DC needs and deserves.
I totally
Um,
agree.
so and you have the Peacemaker show, which is now.
It's
I
great.
haven't
Have you
seen
seen
it,
it?
but
It's
I've
so
heard that it's
good.
really good. Good.
Yeah, it's really good.
So
So much fun.
then I'm gonna like it. So if it's fun, I'm gonna like it. So I'm gonna mention some of the things that I personally didn't like about the Batman that I didn't get to mention on the spoiler-free review, and you'll tell me, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. So the first big problem I have with the movie is, for the most part, you can take, and I have them right here. You can take the Batman out of this movie, and he's pretty much inconsequential. The story would still have played out pretty much the same.
You're not wrong. The only thing that's you can say that he had in hand in is the fact that the Riddler has a hard on for the Batman, which he does. Because,
Okay.
like, remember, he's calling him out throughout the entire movie, like he's just,
Yeah.
and then, like, there's that ambiguous moment where, like, does he actually know that he's Bruce Wayne or not? Like,
I almost thought that he knew
I think he
what he
does.
does. Oh, okay.
I think I'm not sure. Like my conclusion from the end of that movie was that he knew, but like I don't know. I have no idea. A lot of people are telling me no, he didn't. But like
I'm thinking. I think I'm with you on that, because in that interrogation scene, the way he said Bruce Wayne, the way he was looking at him, makes me
yeah,
think that he probably did know him.
I agree. I thought from that I immediately was like he knows. He has to know, right?
Yeah,
Like why would he yell Bruce Wayne in front of Batman's face?
exactly. That's the and going back to what you were mentioning at the beginning about Paul Dano's performance. I liked him in the interrogation scene, with the exception of one part where he gets a little too over the top, was when he finds out, when Batman tells him you're a psychopath, you know, and he goes, no, no. That part's a little too over the top when he gets into the corner. But for the most part, I found him frightening. Like, I actually saw some similarities between his performance, at least in terms of how it was shown through the live feed that he was doing on the phone, similar to how Heath Ledger was in The Dark Knight when they were showing that sequence where he had the wannabe Batman in the background.
Yeah.
So I like this performance. But going back to why I think he is inconsequential to the storyline, with the exception of the riddles that he solved, people still died. The
People
DA
still
still died. The mayor died, right?
yeah, the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
yeah, the mayor died, the DE died. Who else died? The girl who he was trying to find, Selena's friend,
Died.
died. Alfred almost died. Though I did like the way they edited that, where you thought he was calling him, he wasn't picking
Yeah.
up, and it was occurring in real time, but that already
Yeah.
happened. I like
Gonna
that part.
happen. Yeah.
However, towards the end, Riddler's plan still happened. You
It
know,
did, but he did. See, here's the thing. You're right for the most part. Like he didn't save any of Riddler's targets, but at
no,
the very end, when he wanted these incels to like spray everybody with bullets, he did save the mayor, and he did for the most part stop a massacre from happening. I mean, I'm sure people died from the flooding, but like from the people, from the maniacs up top, the terrorists up top, he did stop them. Um, so
would he stop?
remember these Riddler wannabes, like his incel following, were on top of
Oh yes.
the rafters. They're about to shoot, like open fire and shoot everybody there, including the mayor.
Hmm.
He stopped them. He did. Like,
Yeah, and,
I
and, and
mean,
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, at least for me, it felt that was there just so Batman can fight someone.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree because like we got like this really good, intense cat and mouse detective story of the serial killer, blah blah, and then suddenly, but no, these needs to be bigger. Like
Yeah,
so, let's just toss in a big third act to spend all the money that they didn't spend in the first 2 hours of the movie.
you're right. They
And
blew their whole budget there. I was like, holy shit! All of a sudden, I was like, oh my god, what's happening here? Batman's kicking some
yeah,
ass.
yeah. So like that's probably the only time where he actually made a difference because you're not wrong. Like he did in fact like he everybody died. Like everybody that the Riddler wanted to kill died like without a problem except for Bruce Wayne obviously because like
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne. But you're not wrong. I don't disagree there. But like I said, it's just one of those things where like every Batman villain, they have an obsession with Batman. They have to prove something to him, and that's
Right.
exactly what this Riddler did. Like he was just like, I
Yeah,
want to prove to you
he
that
was trying to get he was also using him in a sense to get Falcone out because he was a recluse.
yeah, exactly. He
Yeah.
was using him,
But
and
but he still died.
he still died. Well, that was all Selena's doing. So yeah,
Yeah, that was her doing, yeah. The thing is that the other problem I had, and this is a nitpick, but remember when he had it was right after he beats up that guy, one of the goons
yeah, in the
of the
beginning.
Riddler. No, 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 no.
Oh, okay.
It was right after Selena picks him up and he goes ham on that other guy. And they unmask him and he says,
Yeah, yeah,
who are you? I'm vengeance. He says the
yeah,
same line.
yeah,
And, I'm guessing that scene's kind of to create uh, like a comparison, how he himself is no different than,
yeah,
villains.
yeah,
So when he gets up and he uses the gun to get down to save the people who are, in the flooding,
yeah.
maybe I'm wrong, but I looked at that scene and I kind of laughed because he can see them. They're all the way down there, and there's this big box which is lighting it up. And he just grabs the little thing that he has here. He cuts the thing. He falls to the floor, into the water, and he takes out the flare. And he's like, to follow him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you didn't really need that flare. That's kind of useless. Like you have that big box light up there. It's you can see them. They can see you. You
I
didn't need
mean,
that.
whoever wasn't paying attention wouldn't have seen because like it's
Yeah,
easier to see like red in white light. So I
yeah,
guess like it was just like a homing thing. Like, look, I'm here. Come to me.
right. But I felt that scene was more there to create him as the symbol of hope that he's this
Yeah,
hero,
I
and
can see
I'm
that too.
fine with that. But however, hey, you have Gordon, you have all these cops who have been helping throughout the movie. They deserve as much credit too. I mean, they're a team. That's the whole thing. That Batman is there with Gordon, but I get it. It's a Batman movie. He's supposed to be the centerpiece. Fine, I
Yeah.
get it. The other thing that I have a problem with about is the scene with the bomb. So the bomb was not intended for Alfred. It was not intended for Alfred.
Mhm.
So it blows up, and he survives. Okay, I was thinking maybe you can correct me on this. The whole idea was to get Falcone, into the light because he's a recluse, and he needs Batman to do that. He needs Batman to be the one to do that. However, you can use the excuse that like you said, most villains are obsessed with Batman,
Mhm.
but I think he could have just done the same thing, mail a bomb or find one of his goons to get into the club. Batman did it 3 times. Some of these goons can probably find a way, but I don't know.
I don't. The thing is that like I don't know if the Riddler knew that Falcone was a rat.
So
I
did
think
they didn't establish that he wasn't. So he didn't know.
I don't know if he knew. That's the thing. Like I think he knew there was a rat, but I don't think he knew that there. I don't think he knew who it was. I think,
Okay,
mind you, the movie's kind of hard to follow.
it is. That's a
Yeah,
problem. That's why
it's
I'm
hard to
asking
follow.
you because there's some parts where I was falling asleep, and I know that he was alluding that there's a rat, the rata
Yeah,
rata. So my thought is that since he's the guy who's doing all these riddles, he's trying to, he's the one who knows the pieces. I was thinking that maybe he knew who the rat was, but you could be right. Maybe he doesn't know. So the other thing is
but at the
that
same time, I think he was making a statement. I think he wanted to publicly execute the guy. Remember, it's like,
okay,
oh, bring him into the light, and bah, So presumably, I think it was just like, because especially with this Riddler, because he's so damn dramatic, like he's just like, oh my god.
he's very
Um,
over the top
Very,
for sure.
very melodramatic. Has to make a statement about everything. It's not just about killing people. So it's just like the Joker. It's like it's about killing people with purpose. It's not necessarily just so people could die, but it's just so that he gets to say something, and
Right. So
openly executing the rat in front of everybody was probably part of the main motivation.
right, but now here comes a thing that I'm asking myself. He got to do what he wanted to do. He got
Yeah,
to get him killed,
yeah,
and whichever way he found a way, he shot him. Good aim. The other thing that comes to mind is at the end of the movie. He flooded the city. He got what he wanted, and he's upset about it. Why? he got his goal. I mean, the only thing you can argue is that maybe Batman didn't appreciate it because he was, so into Batman. But other than that, his plan went into fruition. And I also didn't like the inclusion of Joker. I'm not on board. Like
Yeah,
that could have been for another movie.
yeah, I agree, but like it was just teasing. Um, I know he was mad about something. Like something happened that really upset him, but I don't remember what it was. I don't remember honestly. I know like at the time when I was watching it, oh, I understand why he's upset. Like it made sense to me why he was upset about something that Bruce said. I don't know, but something was said that upset him and I'm like, "Oh, that I didn't bump into that at all. It didn't bother me. To me that made sense at that moment in time. I just don't remember why he was upset."
Okay.
Um, I'm sure it was something to do with Bruce and just like again, like it all. I think it all
That's
goes back to the fact that he knew he was Bruce, and it's like, oh, look,
that's
I'm
why I'm
Bruce.
thinking that. That's why I think he knows
Yeah,
he is both Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. That's why
I think
that's the
so.
only way that it can make sense for me in my mind. The other thing that I have a problem with, and this is a problem with if you've seen a lot of Matt Reeves movies, is there's too much exposition. A lot of stuff is being explained to you a lot, and I get I understand that you can't do a movie without having exposition. There's certain things you cannot show, you have to explain. But this movie does it a lot. There's one scene that I started laughing and I had to hold myself. I think some people in the theater were looking at me mad. It's the scene where, and I briefly mentioned in my spoiler-free review, where you have Batman, Catwoman, and Gordon, and they're listening to that recording. And Gordon says, after like a minute passing or a minute and a half, he goes, "She's being strangled. They're choking her." No shit. No shit.
Oh, I
Like,
couldn't tell.
you couldn't tell?
No,
I
I
was
couldn't tell. So I was welcoming that exposition.
no. I mean, I'm hearing someone.
I didn't hear that. I just heard screaming. I just heard screaming. Honestly,
No.
and mind you, I saw it in IMAX, and I didn't hear the choking sounds. I heard screaming.
But
That's me.
still,
I didn't hear it.
oh, okay. But I don't know. I found that line like kind of funny, but it's. I'm sorry. The also the love between that scene where they kiss. I did not buy
Yeah,
the love.
I agree. Like to me, that came out of nowhere. Like they're just like for no reason whatsoever. They're just longing to kiss each other. I'm like, you don't know each other.
At
Like, why
all.
do you want to?
At all.
Why are you longing for that all of a sudden? Like,
All he was
it was
doing
just
was pushing her, to wear
yeah.
a contact lens and do what he wants, and all of a sudden, okay,
She's
it's
super into him.
yeah,
Yeah, like I agree with it. That I feel like that was hacked on. It's like it's Selena and Bruce have to be together. Like I totally agree with that. That made no sense. I didn't buy it. There was no development. They worked together once, and suddenly
once
she fell in love
that
with
was it.
him.
Just and
Just
it,
once.
it's the worst kiss scene I've seen since Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker between Kylo Ren
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. It's pretty bad. I mean, it's just like it was even because like okay, it was just at the very beginning. Like he's following her, fine, he's following her. He was staring at her for a long time. His broody stare, like his weird broody stare and shit like that. And like he followed her, and then he with his binoculars he watches her get dressed. I'm like, this how is this not creepy? Why are we accepting that he's sitting there spying on this girl change? Like this is not okay. This is not okay. He's Batman and he's peeping on this girl. Like that's not okay. She
yeah,
never
that's
found
creepy.
out because I'm sure if she found out, she would have slapped his ass and was like, "No, I don't want to kiss you because you saw me change."
Yeah,
But like they worked together once. They used the contact lenses. He was in her ear. That's it. And he just appeared in her apartment, and then she was okay with it. Like that's exactly how they met. Like that they met. Okay, in case if you guys have not seen it yet, I mean, which I don't know why you haven't seen it yet because this is a spoiler review. He
hmm
literally appears in her apartment, and that's the first time they met. And she's like, "Okay, we're friends now." And
no,
oh
I
yeah, I
didn't
like
question
that.
it at all, at all. Here's another thing that I had a problem with. So they were trying to find her friend, right?
Yeah,
So I know that there's some technology and Batman can, use his gadgets. Why didn't they track the phone? Her phone.
the Russian girl's phone.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to find, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
You don't even have to go into technology. Today you can use like apps to find people, on the phone, like even your own phone. If I don't have an iPhone, but I know I have friends who have iPhones, and they use that little app called Track My Phone, and you can
Android
find.
has it too.
Android has it
But
too. Okay,
yeah, Android has it too. But yeah, that is a big plot hole. The only explanation I can give is maybe it was turned off. You can't really locate a phone when it's off. But like they
sure,
should have
okay,
threw one line in there to explain that, you know?
yeah, at least one
Yeah,
line.
you're not wrong. Yeah, that's
The
true.
the other thing is the car, the body. How many days is that body in the back of the car?
Yeah, no idea.
And they don't even
No
question
idea.
it. Like,
It looked pretty fresh.
yeah, look pretty fresh, and not even a smell. Don't they say that a body starts, decomposing like within the hours?
I don't know, honestly. Like we don't know when she got killed, to be fair.
Okay, yes. The only reason I'm questioning these plot holes is because of the realism of the movie, because it's
Yeah,
supposed to be cerebral.
yeah.
So if you're telling me it's cerebral, I'm going to pay attention, even though I'm half asleep. Sometimes I'm paying attention to what you're telling me and the clues that are being shown. So when you see the body, I'm like, okay, please at least tell me, even in exposition, how long has it been? It's not addressed. The same thing with the phone. Was it off? Did she lose the phone? Address it.
Yeah.
So those are just nitpicks. I understand, but they bother me. The and going back to him being creepy, hella creepy. Yeah, that he just walks in, and not even best amigos, but eventually she just falls for him.
Because they
And
were, yeah, because they were just like after that time they worked together with the contact lenses and the earpiece. Like when they saw each other again, she just kept longing to kiss him. Like, why are we having this moment where she's gazing at him, and he's like, no, I can't. I'm emo. But like that's what happens, right? He's like, I'm emo. But like it's just like why it just was not developed like at
no,
all. We had 3 hours to
three
develop,
hours, and they
but
didn't
we
develop
didn't
that.
develop it. Like there was no development other than work together once. He's helping me find this chick, and then I looked at him and he's in the mask, and no, like that's as much like development we got. Like he was
Even
so attached to her.
didn't she even like said, fuck you, like she took the contact lens and just threw it
Yeah, yeah. Like I understand maybe he likes her because remember he was like creeping on her for a very long time, even when she
even at
was
the
in.
funeral. Even at
Yeah,
the
at the
funeral she
Iceberg
saw her.
Lounge, he was like staring at her and stuff like that. He was creeping on her for a while, so I get if he likes her. Her liking him, bullshit. Like I don't buy it at all. You're right. Like that's bullcrap. Like it makes no sense. That was not developed in the slightest. They just needed to like put them together because there needs to be a romance because it's Selena. That's it.
Exactly. Someone in the comment section is going to say, yeah, but that's how it happens in the comics. We as the audience should know that. Yeah, BS, because
No.
you have to show that in the movie. You have to explain that. It can't come out of nowhere. So the other thing that came out of nowhere that I thought was kind of dumb was when she wants to get revenge, and she with Falcone,
Yeah.
and she's pointing the gun at him, and she's saying this is for so and so, which is her
Yeah.
mom. And I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't Falcone already know that?
What do you mean?
He's the dad, so he should know who the mom is.
Yeah. So I don't get it. What's your problem?
It's just the way she delivers that line. It's like, okay, it's this can be said for many movies where
It's a
people don't.
cheesy horror movie line. Like, what do you expect? It's a drama. Like, it's just like how many horror movies there are that they just have to have one final dramatic line right before they kill the villain. Like, that's what that was.
Yeah,
That's a problem. You have a problem with that?
well, it's not so much the line. It's more like, okay, and this happens in a lot of movies. I know where you had the chance to shoot, but no, you have to wait to say that dumbass line, and then you pull your trigger, and it's too fucking late. It happens even in movies that I like, and they address it like in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where Tuco, tells a guy when you want to shoot, shoot, don't talk. Because there's a guy who was wanting revenge on him, and he takes too long to shoot. But here, a movie that was taking itself very seriously, and you have that scene where she's gonna get her revenge. I'm like, girl, don't tell me you're gonna give him a line. And then of
It's
course, he says, my own blood wants to kill me. He's trying to,
a
kill her.
movie, dude. Like
It's a
that's all I
movie. I
can say.
know.
It's a movie. Like that I can you can the other things like the phone, the tracking of the phone, and the state of the body. Like I can understand why you have problems with that. It's a movie. She's
Yeah.
gonna say a line. Movies do that. Like, dude, get over that one. Like I won't give you that one.
Okay. Okay.
I won't give you that
Fair,
one.
fair enough. The let me see what else. F- I have notes here. The Yeah, going back to Bruce Wayne, I hope that the subsequent films address and show Bruce being like a socialite. I mentioned in my spoiler-free review that one of my favorites is the animated movie Batman: Mask the Phantasm. And while you do see Bruce sad, with the loss of his parents, whenever he's around people, he does the act of being the playboy,
Yeah.
and he knows he doesn't have to train to do that. He grew up rich. He grew up as a millionaire, and he has rich friends. The But in this movie, at least I wanted something kind of like in Batman Begins, where how Bruce in Batman Begins says, I want to be a symbol. I want to, he's explaining why he's doing what he's doing, and he's co-working with Alfred on what the plan is. And it's not to say that I want an origin story, but at least wanted a line where we understand what is his motive. And we do get some narration, and I like the fact that you get narration from several of the key characters in this movie. But other than the fact that he say that he's been doing this for 2 years, I don't, and I understand that very much like how we know that there has to be a love interest between Catwoman and Batman, we also know what are the motives for Batman, but in this movie, it kind of seems left out. It kind of seems like, hey, you guys seen plenty of Batman movies, you know why he's doing what he's doing. I wanted a little bit, at least a few lines where we understand that he is either a symbol or why he's doing what he's doing. Mostly what we got was that on vengeance, and that's about it.
I think it's in the opening monologue, which is a really good voiceover opening monologue, by the way.
It is. I'll give it that.
I think it's in there. And what I got out of it was that like he doesn't know what he wants to be yet. All we know is that he's incredibly angry.
Yeah,
That's
very
what I
angry.
got. Is that
Yeah,
like he's so angry and he's just fighting crime because of that anger, and he doesn't yet know what he wants to do. He doesn't yet know what he wants to be.
but even if he doesn't know what he wants to do, we should at least have some grasp of his anger. And of course,
He
we know that.
did, dude. Like he punched the shit out of that goon in the subway station.
Yeah, yeah,
That was angry.
that was angry. No, no, but the thing is that, yeah, outside from the fact that he lost his parents, there's never, outside of that, there's never anything that tells us, hey, where is the anger coming from? Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a vigilante, or are you trying to create justice? And we never really got to. And I understand it's 2 years into Batman, but I want to know. Maybe they'll explain in the next movie how he became close with Gordon, because no one in the police department cares for Batman, but
Yeah,
Gordon is on his side.
yeah. Um, but that was the way I looked at it. Was that like he didn't know what he wanted to do? All we know is that he was incredibly angry and incredibly emo. So he didn't
Very,
really
very
know.
emo.
He just didn't know what he wanted, and I feel like that was kind of reflected in a way in the opening monologue. I get what you're saying. They should have had at least one line of dialogue, one line in the monologue that explains it. But like,
Mhm.
but I saw it as he didn't know what he wanted yet. Like, and that's why at the end he realized that he could be the symbol of hope, and that's why he's like that. That's what I want to be.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's where it came full circle at the end when he's like standing on top of standing with this girl and he's holding her up to the helicopter. He's like, "This is what I want to be now. I don't want to scare people. I want to give people hope." So I'm like, okay, so that's where because he's not angry anymore. He's still emo, just not angry. But in the beginning, he was incredibly angry, and that was that demonstration of him like just punching the shit out of that guy. Like that's anger. Like you can't that's inescapably anger. You can't deny that that's anger. So that's how it was explained to me. And like, and this is where I did disagree with you in terms of like your spoiler free review. Like, I because he's 2 years to being Batman. The whole point of that movie is that he doesn't yet know how to be Bruce Wayne. He doesn't yet know how to balance the two, the persona versus the real self. Like I mean, like this is Kevin Conroy, as you said, understood that. And Kevin Conroy was very, very like clear because he does that actory thing where he's just like, okay, I know what I want to do, and that's why he did a different voice whenever he played Bruce Wayne, is because Bruce Wayne is the persona, whereas the Batman is the real person. So that's the masquerade. Bruce Wayne is always the masquerade, which I'm sure everybody gets by now from various other Batman media. And like just from that one line of dialogue at the very beginning, right before he was meeting Alfred, Alfred's just like, Bruce Wayne has to keep up appearances, but like he's like, no, I don't want to emo. Yeah, so it's just like that to me explains right away that like he's that persona of Bruce Wayne, that fake happy socialite thing that you wanted. He hasn't yet figured out that that's what he should be doing. He hasn't yet figured out. He's just obsessed with being the Batman, being angry and emo and Batman. So at that point, like that to me, that line of dialogue explained everything. That he's just like, I don't yet know that I need to do this. I'd rather just be Batman 24/7, not care about the Bruce Wayne persona. That's why I was like, he's a recluse. Nobody knows who he is. They know, they see him, they recognize him, but they don't know who he is, really, because like he's never out in public. And I think that's the whole point of this movie, is that like he didn't figure out yet that he is what he should be doing. Like he's just like, I'm obsessed with being Batman, I'm obsessed with solving crime, I'm obsessed with beating up people and screaming on vengeance. So like. That's how I saw it. Like he's still new at this. It's a lot of this movie is him figuring out things that he should be doing and what he wants to do and blah blah blah. Like that's why like there's a lot of conflict between him and Alfred. Alfred's like, you need to be Bruce Wayne too, and he's like, I don't want to be Bruce Wayne, Dad. I just want to be Batman. Leave me alone. That's what I saw. Like he was just being an immature brat. Like I just want to be Batman. Leave me alone. And then like at the end of this movie, like yeah, I need to be Bruce Wayne too. So
yeah, you can say that that's part of it, while not seen completely. It's part of his arc, especially when you see that that goon, that follower say, I'm vengeance, and he's seeing that, hey, I'm no different than one of these guys.
I saw it, at least. That's what I got like right away from the movie. Like there are little snippets, the relationship between him and Alfred's just urging him, like, please, you need to keep up appearances. You still need to be Wayne. You still need to carry on Thomas's legacy. He's like, no, I want to be Batman. But then like he finally realizes, like, yeah, I kind of need to be Bruce Wayne too, and stuff like that. That's how I saw it. And like you say that like he grew up a millionaire. Yeah, that's true. He grew up a millionaire, but like the most accepted canon of Batman is that like the moment his parents died, like after like a couple of years of like mourning their death, he was shipped off to various parts of the world to train like crazy. So technically he never grew up in that aristocratic lifestyle. He grew up training. So that's the accepted canon. Obviously, we don't know what he did to train in
this universe.
But like the accepted canon was that like he went off for like 10-15 years training. So he didn't actually grow up an aristocrat like you claim he did. He didn't. So yeah.
Or in Batman Begins by Ra's al Ghul, which I know you don't like the fact that it's pronounced wrong.
Batman animated series is my Bible, and they very specifically said Ra's al Ghul, so I pronounce it Ra's al Ghul, and I know they pronounce it Ra's al Ghul, whatever. It sounds cool when it's Ra's al Ghul, it's whatever. And yeah, he didn't train Batman. In case you guys,
it's true. He
didn't train Batman, not him specifically. But I think he did train with the League of Assassins at some point, but he trained with
the League of Shadows,
two different names. He trained with a ton of people, and I don't think that's fine. That's not a bad story beat. Like that's actually kind of cool that Ra's al Ghul trained him. I can accept.
I liked it. I definitely liked that aspect. And though I understand because the Nolan movies are supposed to be grounded in reality, you don't get to see the pits and the stuff that you saw in the animated series. Right. But, going back to the animated series, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't seen all the episodes, not in a long time at least. Is there an explanation, or do they show Bruce becoming, the character of Bruce? Because reality, he has no, you never see that. Okay.
The moment it starts, he's been Batman for a while, and he already has the two different personas like immediately. Like the moment you see him in the public face as Bruce Wayne, he's always like light and hot and talk and silly and jolly.
Yeah.
Batman, he's like, I have a deep voice and I'm scared.
Right. And I love that voice.
Yeah.
I'll give you this, that Robert Pattinson, that line that he says on vengeance, while not close to Kevin Conroy, it's still very, very good. It reminded me
Yeah.
of, there's an episode that one of my favorites from the animated series is when um, Batman's having hallucinations. Uh, it's the episode where he sees his parents are alive, but
Is
they're
it with
not
the
really.
Mad Hatter?
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Perchance a Dream.
Okay, that's what it's called. And there's a
Yeah.
part where he fights against those visions, and he
Yeah.
said, and because he sees a vision of his father saying you're a failure, and he says, "No, I'm the knight, and I'm vengeance." That particular, that's the first thing that came to my mind, when I heard, Robert Pattinson saying, "I'm vengeance." It
He doesn't
reminded me
say
of
it
that.
in that episode.
Is that episode?
No, that's the one where he's in a hallucination and his parents are alive. He's in a relationship with Selena, and at the end of and then there is another Batman, but he's not Batman. Bruce Wayne's not Batman. Is that the one you're talking about?
I think it's that one. Mind you, I haven't seen these
Yeah, yeah.
episodes in a long time, but I remember there's an episode where he's holding on and he sees a vision of it, like it looks kind of like a skeleton, but it transforms into his father, and it's telling him, you're a failure, and
I don't remember.
you don't remember,
It's
but
been a
yeah,
while. No.
okay. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, when I heard Robert Pattinson saying that line after he beat up the guy, the first thing that came to my mind was that particular episode. Again, I don't know which one it is. Hopefully, it's not a Mandela effect.
He
But
does say it in one of the episodes. I know what you're talking about, but
yeah.
I don't think he says it in the episode I'm talking about where like it ends on a clock tower where he's fighting Batman.
Hmm.
He never says it in that episode. It's a whole other episode where he spouts that famous line, "I'm vengeance, I'm the knight, I'm Batman." That's a whole different episode. I just don't remember which one, which I should know, but like Perchance a Dream is just one of my favorite episodes. I remember that one very well.
I remember seeing that episode when I was a kid, and I remember like finding it very, very scary. That's one of the most darkest animated shows, and it was made for kids.
Yeah. But just so you know, like we get flashbacks of Bruce's training throughout the series, but the most origin I think, like the most we get from Bruce becoming Batman is Mask of the Phantasm, which you've seen. So
Yes.
like so
Yes.
that is basically as much as we're gonna get in terms of him becoming Batman or Bruce Wayne and stuff like that. Because like yeah, because like I
And
think Mask is like when about the time he just got back home and he's starting out to be Batman because he wears that like face mask and shit like that.
mhm. And
Yeah,
does Mask of the Phantasm ever tie to the show, or it's its own thing? Is it canon, or
I mean it's hard to say like because
because it's the same animation?
yeah it's from the same people like
Mhm.
it's Bruce Timm and Paul Dini like all the same people same art style. Um, I think because the problem with the Batman the animated series is that like there wasn't a ton of continuity until
No.
like later in the series. Um, so it is canon, but like there's no references to it in the show.
Oh,
It's
okay.
you don't see references to it until like Justice League, like because at that point it became a continuity. It became the DC animated universe because it started with
Okay.
Batman, then it started with Superman, then it went on with Superman animated series, and then Justice League Unlimited. I think it was the finale of Justice League where and then boy yeah Batman Beyond's in there too. I think you've seen it because I'm pretty sure I showed it at one of our Batman nights that we used to do, Batman parties that we used to do.
Hmm.
Uh, it's called Epilogue, where we follow like a much older Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, and he finds out huge spoilers for a show that's like 20 years old, but whatever. We find out that Bruce is actually Terry's dad.
Oh.
Um, you don't remember this?
No, I'm not sure if I either came late to that particular Batman party, because I know most of these Batman parties we used to do that you would show several episodes,
Yeah.
so I probably didn't get to see that one.
Okay. Well, that's an episode that everyone should watch. It is a wonderful episode that displays the humanity of Batman. It's so good. Like I think I always shed tears when I watch it because it's that good. It's called Epilogue. It's a Justice League episode. It was meant to be the bookend to the DC animated universe. It was meant to be the end before they realized they were getting another show. So that's when they started Justice League Limited. But anyway, as far as I remember, because like there's Andrea Beaumont and then there's the Phantasm, right? And Andrea
Hmm.
Beaumont was the Phantasm.
Yep.
She that
And
character
spoilers for
never,
people who haven't seen
yeah,
Phantasm. It's a
20-year-old movie.
spoiler
It could
video.
be a 30-year-old movie at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
basically.
if as far as I remember, that movie is canon, but it's never referenced in the Batman the Animated Series because that the show didn't have too much of a continuity. And then in Epilogue, where it was meant to tie in the entire DC animated universe, we did see Phantasm for the first time in the show. Like it is a brief moment where we saw Phantasm for the first time in the show, if I remember correctly. I'm sure somebody out there can correct me, but it is canon, but it was just it's never referenced in the show at all until that moment, I believe.
And not even by Joker.
No, I don't think
No.
so. Because remember, those episodes were very like standalone, you
They
know?
were the
Yeah.
though I remember, and every time that I watch it, I found it more violent than the show, at least in certain aspects. So you get to see blood. There's a part where you get to see blood from Joker.
Mask of the
Uh,
Phantasm?
mhm.
Yeah, because the show was I don't get me wrong, I love Batman the Animated Series, but the show was airing during a time where I guess like punching and kicking weren't a thing. So there was
A lot of throwing.
yeah, there was a lot of throwing. There
Mhm.
was a lot of like tackling and just like whoosh, like just like throwing people over people's shoulders and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Like there wasn't a whole lot until like the new Batman Adventures when they changed up the design stuff like that. That's when we started getting punches in because at that point
that's
like
the fourth season, right?
I think so.
Mm.
And then because like at that point Superman animated series had come out and so they were I guess like standards like were like lowering a lot so that you could
Yes,
be
I
punching.
remember. That's when they did the crossover, the Batman Superman movie.
Yeah. So there was punches finally started happening towards the later part of the show, but for the most part, there was a lot of like tossing people over each other's shoulders and stuff like that. Like I still remember, like mind you, it's one of my favorite episodes of the series. It's called Old Wounds. No, it's not called Old Wounds. What is it called? Robin's Reckoning. When we find out the origin story of Dick Grayson and how he lost his parents, and like Dick Grayson's so freaking mad because he finally faces the guy who killed his parents, and it's a lot of like grabbing him by his shirt, like I hate you, like that's like
So,
the guy who killed your parents, and you'd rather throw him than punch the motherfucker in the face? Like, no. But
I'm thinking
anyway,
that maybe this was because it was a kids show, and they,
yeah,
yeah,
that's 100% the reason why.
yeah,
Like that, like censorship, like started, like the standards were just lowering, and we were, and people started like, I guess whatever the FCC or whoever was monitoring TV stations at the time, they're just like, I guess we can start letting kids see punching and kicking.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, regardless, I still love the show. And
yeah,
speaking of the show, I found the episode. I'm going to share. I'm going to put it on mute so we don't get a copyright strike.
yeah.
Because you can let me know which episode it is. Because I have the box sets, and I want to revisit that particular episode. Let me see if I can share my screen. Share screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
No,
Uh,
I can't see anything. Okay, now I can.
so I'm gonna. It's this particular scene right here. I'm gonna put this on mute. I'm going to
Yeah.
skip the ad. It's this episode. Batman is he's hallucinating here.
Yeah, this is that infamous scene. I know, what but it's not. It's not the one I'm talking about.
But he says here,
Yeah,
I'm gonna really
you know what he says. He says it.
okay. Yeah, but it's that is that the same episode?
No, it's not the same episode. It's a completely
Oh,
different
okay.
episode.
Which
Yeah,
episode's that one?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, the and love that animation. I
Yeah.
remember as a kid being a little upset when they changed the design in the I think it's the fourth season. I could be wrong of Batman the Animated Series. Is there a particular reason why they did that? Why they changed it?
If I recall, Bruce Timm, who was the one who like designed everything, he was the artist in that series. He just wanted to refresh him. He just wanted to like change it. He just Like he designed them a certain way in the original. He's like, I want to make modifications. I want to make them. It's just like basically going over and revising something you didn't like in the first place. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
what happened. It's like, yeah, like I just want to change how they look, refresh them, and make them look different, stuff like that. Some designs were better, some designs were worse.
Poison
Um,
Ivy's is the one that I least like. Her eyes
no,
changed a lot.
I didn't like Joker because Joker went from like he had
Yeah.
lipstick and stuff like that, and like regular eyes, and then in the new one he had like black sclera and like
That's
white pupils. I didn't like that a lot. I didn't like that at all. But I love the Scarecrow redesign. Because Scarecrow went from this like weird cartoony looking guy, and then but then in the redesign he was really creepy. He was huge. He was intimidating. He was like very dark. Like I like that. But some things were good. Some things were bad.
right.
Yeah.
So we got into a tangent with the Batman animated series, but um, quickly before we wrap up, are there
Mhm.
any other things that you notice or that you particularly want to mention from the new Batman movie?
Just like I said, go into it knowing that this is not a superhero movie. It's not your average superhero fanfare. Not a ton of spectacular action sequences. Not a ton of fan service, satisfying fan service moments. It is primarily a psychological thriller that just happens to have a dude dressed like a bat. I love the fact that they treat this so damn seriously because for the most part, like it's comic books. Like no one really takes comic books that seriously, but Matt Reeves really took it really far with it. He really wanted you to know like this is serious shit. This is an adult medium that you need to appreciate, and that's what he did, in my opinion. And then for the first time, we finally got like a detective Batman. There was a lot of detective work, even though the riddles weren't the hardest. We got a ton of detective work, a lot of gadgets we've never seen before. Like the contact lens thing was super super cool. Um, Overall, the thing that I haven't mentioned yet, and why I didn't love it, and I just liked it, was the fact that it's not entertaining. Like you go to a movie to be entertained. You go to a movie to have fun. This movie was not fun. This movie was not entertaining. I would stop short of calling it boring like you called it. I don't think it's boring at all. I was captivated from beginning to end, but overall it's not that entertaining. There's a few moments here and there where you're going to be like, "Wow, that was cool," but overall like it's not a fun movie. It's incredibly emotionally draining. But and it's not something you want to sit through over and over and over again like you would another movie. Like I can watch Dark Knight over and over and over again. It's not
Yeah.
fucking lame. I can't watch this movie over and over and over again. I just can't.
Yeah, this is the first time I have to agree that and maybe you're right. It's not, perhaps it's not boring is not the right word, but I would call it slow. I would call it
So
it has pacing issues,
it's
and
long.
it's long. I'm thinking maybe the execs at Warner were kind of panicked and said, okay, let's not pull another Zack Snyder where we cut the movie, ended up releasing a
Yeah.
garbage ass trash in theaters, and let's have Matt Reeves do what he wants to do. Because there were some articles, and now they're kind of gone, but there were some articles popping up on social media that Warner again was worried about this movie and they wanted to do reshoots and trim the movie, but they didn't. They let the movie go out into theaters as Matt Reeves wanted.
Which is
And
good because they need to start respecting their filmmakers.
in that aspect, I have to agree. I don't like when directors are gun for hire or
Yeah.
they manipulate them to think that they are actually doing their artistic vision and then they get, their films get butchered. Like,
Because they already burned David Ayer, then they burned Zack Snyder, and burning
yeah,
Zack Snyder was the worst thing they could have done because they ended up paying for the movie twice.
hmm
That's
yeah.
their fault.
And and the funny thing is that and a lot of people are going to be angry about this, but the Justice League, that one's still canon and not the Zack Snyder version. Which the Zack Snyder version had not the tragedy that happened to his family, with his daughter. He probably wouldn't have gotten fired, but I think that there were still some issues there. You can tell that even when he went into that film, the studio was asking him to make that movie lighter because of the backlash that he got for BVS.
Yeah.
And so and it's funny because now fans, they adore Zack Snyder and they're clamoring onto him like he's this god. But
Yeah.
I remember back in 2016, people were trashing him, saying, "Hey, this guy is the biggest piece of crap. His movies are terrible." Oh, but
Yeah.
now that he has a Zack Snyder cut, you're loving him. I'm not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder. I liked his best movie for me, which is written by James Gunn, is Dawn of the Dead. I love that movie. I think it's one of the best remakes, and I think that's his best movie. Um, Everything else of his, I think he's a style over substance kind of director. I understand why people like his movies. I remember when 300 came out, everyone was saying it's the best movie ever. I love the look, but it's not my kind of movie. He's never been my type of director. But going back to giving freedom to directors, I do like and I hope that they give the freedom to people like the director of the Joker, the director of
Matt
Matt,
Phillips.
Matt yeah, Phillips, and Matt Reeves to do what they want to do, even if a dumbass fanboy like me here criticizing his ass.
Yeah.
I will still say, hey, I respect you. You did your movie, you got it made, and this is your work, unaltered. This is not a studio, because I hate studio meddling. There's so many movies that have had, the first thing that going back, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. That's a committee, movie. That's something made by the studio because oh my god, we're panicking because
Yeah.
we gave, you know, with all the issues that I've had, and going back to being I'm a bit of a contrarian sometimes with, and I think it's completely okay to change your mind every now and then with Last Jedi. When I first saw Last Jedi, I hated the movie, and I've since revisited the movie, and I think it's a good movie. It's way better in comparing it to the other two movies in that trilogy. It's a much better movie. And even if I don't agree with the choices that that director made with that movie, I can still say, hey, you did what you wanted to do. Ryan Johnson, you did what you
Yeah.
wanted to do. And this does not feel like a studio movie. Whereas the third movie, even though it's directed by J.J. Abrams, it feels very much like a studio film.
It's like course correction the movie,
It's a
man.
course correction in the movie. Let's control alt delete. You know,
100%.
I think the reason why I became so a fanboy, like an angry fanboy when I saw The Last Jedi, was because of Luke. I love the character of Luke, and I just seeing him just being a recluse and just there in that island. And here's the thing: he grew up in a farm, so that's how he is. So, and it's kind of the Jedi thing to hide, go into hiding. So, but the first time I saw it, I was like, damn, I was, and you should never, this is a warning to everyone who watches movies, and I think it happens to everybody. Don't create a fan fiction in your head. Don't create a vision of a movie that you want to see. Sure, I want to see Luke kill and battle and do a whole bunch of shit, and it didn't happen. So go into movies, even if you love these characters, with an open mind, because directors are going to do what they want to do. And this goes back to this movie. While I didn't get to see the type of Batman movie that I wanted to see, I still can say, hey, this is a well made movie in terms of the acting, the directing, the style. It's definitely, I can see that, hey, this is Matt Reeves' movie. I don't agree with it, but it's his movie. So with that said, that's what I think of this movie, and I do hope that, I think DC is going on a good direction. They're finally accepting, hey, we got to make our own movies, and I know they're going to continue the DCU in some shape, way, or form with the Flash and all these other things. But I'm glad that they're going in a different direction. They're finally accepting, hey, we cannot compete with Marvel. Let's not do another BVS where we have 15 movies in one, trying to be like Marvel. Let's not do that.
Yeah, let's stop
So
doing a cinematic universe. We can't do it. Let's just not do it, and that's fine
no,
with me. I would, as much as I would like one, they screwed up, so it's fine.
yeah, they definitely screwed up, and I think the first time that and I was surprised was with the movie Joker. The first time I was a little off put by the fact that Joker was different, but this is it's a different Joker, and I'm pretty sure they're going to address whether he's a follower or if he's really the Joker. I don't know, but regardless, I love the performance by Joaquin Phoenix in that movie.
See, yeah, I'm the same way. I recognize Joker as like this great technical masterpiece. It's so wonderfully made. Joaquin Phoenix is so good, but like I have a lot of problems with that movie, and it all boils down to the fact that like that's not a Joker that I want ever in this world. Like I don't like that
Yeah,
joke. I don't like the
it,
storyline for that Joker. It's to me it's bullshit.
yeah. The biggest problem I have with the Joker movie is, and this might be a nitpick for some, is that he didn't really do much for him to have so many followers at the end.
I mean, other than publicly executing somebody on TV.
Well, yeah, but we already had those followers before that. There's already people outside, following him. All he did was shoot the guy in the bus, and no one saw that. And then the train. I'm sorry, the train.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
I
but
see what you're talking about. I have
yeah,
problems with that movie.
yeah, me too. I, however, I cannot deny it looks like a '70s movie. It looks like it looks like something that was shot back then. I like the acting. Sure, they even stole some things, or let's say homage to King of Comedy, because the best artist steal. But I think that that movie, compared to all the other things that DC has failed at, is a masterpiece. Compared, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, So what with that said, I think we've covered pretty much everything with the Batman. I think both me and Adam can agree that it's a movie that's very well made. I think fans of the Batman character will enjoy it. And if you are a weirdo like me who, is attached to like the first Joel Schumacher movie, or even the Batman show from the '60s, which I used to watch on the Fox channel when I was a kid, I think that maybe you won't like it. Like it, you might think it's slow, but you might appreciate the technicalities of the movie. So, any other thoughts that you would like to add, Adam?
Um, don't listen to what we have to say. Go watch it yourself and make your own opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's I couldn't agree more. I'm just a random guy on YouTube. We're just random people. We give our 2 cents. If you agree with us, fine. If you don't, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Even though I don't like the movie, I appreciate the movie. I still also recommend going seeing it. Go to the theater. I didn't see it in IMAX, but I did see it on the big screen, and you get to appreciate the art and the work that was put into this movie.
I saw it in IMAX and it rumbled my ass. It was loud. It was
I can
very
bet.
loud.
I
Yeah.
can. Oh, another thing that I liked about the movie, I like the part where he flies with that thing. He looks
The sh-
scared when he's doing it. It looks like he's doing it for the first time.
and the direction is great. Like they just
Yes,
strapped the camera to his face and they're just
yeah,
like
that POV was great.
really
Um,
cool. And that car chase sequence was really cool too.
yes, yes, that car chase sequence, I loved it. It
It was
was
really
really
good.
good. That sound of the car, was like damn,
It was
and I
well
didn't see it. And
shot
I'm
and it was in the rain too. So it's just like it was so good. It was so
yeah,
well shot, so just well composed. Like it was a good scene. But
and
like I
that
said, these are like one, two good scenes in like a 3 hour movie, Like
exactly.
yeah,
That's the thing. Like, and going back, like that fight scene that you have at the end,
yeah.
it just comes so late into the movie. I was
Mhm.
kind of nodding off, and then oh shit,
He's
Batman's
doing
kicking
something.
ass.
He's doing something. He's
He's
doing something, guys. He's not just brooding.
not just
Guys,
rude.
is he doing something? Yeah, it's just it really is like it. That's why I say it's not boring. It's just not entertaining. Like it's just not entertaining
It's
because we
it's
literally
uninformative.
listed the most fun moments. Aside from that, there's one more fun moment that we missed, and that was that scene where he like infiltrated the iceberg lounge, and like they're shooting at him, and and literally the only lights from this hallway scene is from the bullets ricocheting off his.
Yes, that scene was
That
really
is a
cool.
cool scene. That's like
It,
basically his Rogue One Darth Vader scene. Like
yes,
it's
yes, I
freaking
was gonna
cool.
say that. It reminds me of that for sure.
Yeah, because like it's them just shooting at him and him just like just not caring that they're literally shooting at him point blank, just beating the shit out of them. Like it's really cool.
That's why, like, you're right. It's not boring. It's not the right word. The right word I want to say, it's uneven. It's an uneven movie. I think if this movie was edited differently, trimmed, this movie could have been perfect. But I just think something happened where, again, I understand that Warner is trying to give more freedom to directors, but I don't think there's anything wrong with suggesting to trim some stuff, because there's
Yeah.
certain scenes that I watch where I'm like, does this scene have to be so long? Even the scene where he's talking to Gordon to punch him, that scene before, when they're talking, they're just moving, moving. and talking, and I'm like, "Fuck, punch him already! Do it!"
Yeah.
And of course he does, and then but it's just like you just said, the moments that we've mentioned that are super entertaining,
Yeah.
they happen very few and far in between.
Mhm.
So had we had at least one more fight scene or at least one more chase somewhere in the first hour mark, I would have probably appreciated the movie a lot more. Um, and the last thing I want to mention before we close, because I want to ask you, how would you rank this movie in the Batman? With all the live action movies, it's tough,
When
right?
because I'm trying to figure out, like, you mean everything from Tim Burton onwards?
Okay, you can throw in there the 1966 movie, and let's also throw in the Mask of the Phantasm because that movie came out in theaters, so we'll put that one.
I mean, so did Killing Joke, but
Oh, that one was bad. I'm sorry.
it's not a bad movie. I disagree. I think the first half hour is bad. The rest of it's awesome.
Yeah, the rest is awesome, but the
The
first is
first half hour is terrible. Yeah,
yeah.
not great. I don't know. Like, I still think if we're just exclusively talking about live action, I still think Dark Knight is the best one.
Hmm.
But I have mixed feelings about those Nolan movies because I think they're like overhyped like crazy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
especially the Dark Knight.
yeah, but I do think it is the best one we've gotten. So it's definitely below that. I'm thinking about it right now. Batman Begins is a solid movie too, and I would definitely have more fun with that movie than this one.
Yeah, I would I would personally put Batman Begins, at least from the live action ones, as my number one. But if I have to choose between Mask of the Phantasm, I would put it above Batman Begins. I don't put The Dark Knight as my number one, even though it's an amazing, great movie. Even though like you just said, it's been overhyped, especially it's over the years. This is like the
Yeah,
best we can do. I think it's number one or number three on the IMDb top 100 movies of all time, 250 movies of all time, and I think it's a good movie. It's a really good movie. However, it's very much a Joker movie,
that's
like
why I
that.
like
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, I understand, but Batman's kind of sidelined in his own movie. Um,
it.
so for that reason alone, I have Batman Begins on the top. I This movie, I might have to. It's gonna be hard to revisit this movie one more time because it's 3 hours long. I'll have to find the time to do that,
Yeah,
but I cannot deny it's better, miles better than Justice League, both versions.
I
It's
think it's better
miles.
than Dark Knight Rises at least too.
I have to revisit The Dark Knight Rises. I haven't seen it in years. I remember liking that movie thematically, but it has also a lot of plot holes. A lot of plot
Yeah,
holes.
that movie is also like it's very long, but
Mhm.
Nolan just was over ambitious with that one. Like, he just wanted to stuff so much stuff in it, and
A little too much.
yeah, he was a little overzealous. It was bloated as hell. Like, I
E-
didn't
even
like.
the Even though I love the soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, in that movie, I remember seeing in the theater back in 2012, and it was loud. It was like too much. I felt like the guy in Back to the Future when Marty is playing and say, "I'm sorry, you're just too darn loud." That's how I felt about The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, boomer, Jesus, God, like, you get off my lawn. Your music's too darn loud. You're rock music. Go away.
That's gonna be
That's what.
me as an
Yeah.
old man. Like, that's not music. Turn it off.
It's just because that 2012 was such a weird transitional period because, like, I think that's when the Avengers came out. So Marvel's The Avengers came out that year, and then like 2 months later, The Dark Knight Rises came out. So it's just like, this is new. This is where the comic book movie landscape is going, and then suddenly, like, Dark Knight Rises, the old comic book, the old way of making comic book movies came out afterwards, so it just felt different and dated. Like, because the Avengers changed everything when
It
it came to
did.
comic book movies. So, like,
As
so here we are watching the future of comic book movies, then we have to go back to the past to watch Dark Knight Rises, and it was a weird moment in cinema at that point, you know?
And as much problems as I have with Joss Whedon as a person, and even
Yeah,
with some of the stuff that he's done, I cannot deny that that first Avengers movie is a solid, fun movie. I
good
saw
movie.
it. Yeah, I saw it in preparation for watching the Endgame because I saw all of them,
Yeah,
and it still holds up. It's still a fun
good
movie.
movie. Super
Um,
good movie.
yeah, the Dark Knight Rises when it came out, and I saw both of them in theaters. I
Yeah, me too.
remember I remember when I saw The Dark Knight Rises, I had a similar feeling. Like this feels like an afterthought. This seems like it's of the past. And correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Nolan at that point already wanted to move on. He wanted to do other projects.
I think so. Yeah.
And yeah, he threw everything into the pot. Into the boiling pot of this movie because you have Bane, who his voice is hard to understand sometimes. We're like, oh, you think darkness is your ally, and him getting his back broken and then falling into the pit and coming back, and that
In
fight scene
Talia.
in Talia, and the worst death scene I've seen in a movie where she just goes.
It's
That
bad.
scene is terrible.
It's so stupid. Like there are a lot of problems with that movie. Like I feel like if they just removed the Talia subplot, it would have been like infinitely better.
But they said
But like
to put that in there.
they just had
It was me all along.
because they had to connect it to Raish. Like they just wanted to like, oh, let's go full circle. Ooh.
Yeah, and I kind of saw it coming when you see the little girl climbing up. Like they were trying to trick you to think that that was
That was
Bane,
Bane. Yeah.
but it looks like a girl. It does not. I'm not buying that that's Bane. I didn't know that the guy who was bandaged was Bane, until they revealed it.
Yeah.
But outside though, it's also very well shot. It's shot a lot of it was shot in IMAX. And here's a little trivia: that movie, there's not that many IMAX cameras in the world, and they broke
They used
one of
all
the
of them.
yeah, and they broke one of them in that scene where Catwoman is in the Batpod. They literally destroyed it. And that was like an expensive camera. They have footage of it. You can find it here on somewhere on YouTube. But I still I would have to revisit it. But yeah, it is better than The Dark Knight Rises. It's not better than the first two Nolan movies. Um, I still have a soft spot for the Michael Keaton Batman movies, even though yes, Batman Returns is very much a Tim Burton movie. It feels like a Edward Scissorhands or kind of movie. It feels like his world more so than Batman '89. Batman '89 feels more like a Batman movie of sorts. And yeah, Batman '89 by today's standards, it's very dated. I remember seeing it as a kid and being blown away by it. But of course, watch someone watching it now, they would be like, "How did this movie even became popular?" I can see why they would think that, but I would put it somewhere there in between. I still think this is a movie that's middle of the road. I
Don't
maybe
disagree.
maybe one day I'll rewatch it. It's just the length. I don't know how people don't know that everyone has jobs and some of us have two jobs and it's hard to find time especially to watch a 3 hour length movie. I think that's
It's
why most people today people claim that everyone has like a low attention span. Everyone's watching TikTok videos and Facebook reels, and it's because they're short and it's the only thing you can do between a break that you have versus trying to get 3 hours of
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
It's
for
hard.
me, it's the time commitment. I'd rather watch like 20 YouTube videos versus the 2.5 hour movie. Like
Me too.
I feel like I accomplish more by watching these things in small chunks versus one big thing. Like that's me as well. And yeah, you could easily blame it on our generation and how we prefer short form media, but like it's just hard to commit that amount of time. Like
It's hard.
and to be fair, but also like this movie's just too long. Like it's 2 hours and 56 minutes or something like that. Like
Something like
it's
that.
it's too long and
And on top of that, you have the trailers. You have all that stuff at the
that's
beginning,
true. Yeah.
so it's like more than 3 hours. So
You could have easily cut a half hour from that movie just from his brooding stares alone. Like from that alone, you can cut a half hour. So
yeah,
that's why I'm just like, yeah, no, I get it. We have a short attention span. We should be blah 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 blah. But this movie's also just unnecessarily long. And like, I don't have an issue with long movies, but that movie's way too long. Because like, Endgame is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. You can watch that; it won't feel like 2 hours and
no,
45 minutes. It
because
won't.
every scene in that movie had a purpose. and
Exactly.
whether there was something happening when them going back in time, or there was even the jokes, fit so well. In this movie, I don't think anyone smiled. I think, well, the penguin said a joke about between not knowing Spanish between la and el,
Yeah, yeah.
and I found that funny. But other than that, everyone's super, especially Batman. I'm angry. I
I
gotta kill.
mean,
It's like, no, I must not. And then you have Catwoman, who's madly in love with him after just one meeting. But whatever. The by the way, I love Colin Farrell. He
he's
did
really good.
the makeup they did on him, and I just found out by from Alan, a friend of ours, who told me that they're doing a show for.
Hmm.
That's
They just
awesome.
greenlit it. Yeah, it's the Penguin.
Oh, great. I
Yeah,
would love to see it. That's the thing. The future of cinema and of TV shows, while I think theaters will always exist in one shape or some shape or form of another, but I think the future is definitely TV. Like with the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, I think it would have served us better as an episode, kind of thing where you can
hundred
sit
percent.
back and relax and, hey, I'll watch. Actually, it kind of does play like that when you think about it. If my memory serves me correct, the movie is spliced in a way
In the
where
chapter.
in chapters, so you can watch one chapter one day, another chapter
Yeah.
another day. It's hard. It was hard for me to watch that in one sitting, which I didn't.
I
I had to
didn't.
pause. No, me
I
neither.
did.
No,
I took.
I
I took.
tried, but I
I
couldn't.
took about 2 or 3 days to finish it because, like, not because I didn't want to, but because it was just it's just too long. I didn't have the
Too long.
time. It's just too
I
long.
I think I remember starting like on a Sunday, and it's funny because you think you have you have a day off, and or 2 days off, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and watch a couple of movies or a movie, and you're like, you're tired. You're tired from working, and then you put on a movie, and then you barely get 45 minutes in. At least for me, and I end up falling asleep.
I don't fall asleep.
You know, fall asleep.
No, I
I
don't
think
fall
it's
asleep.
just I think it's just being overworked. But
Yeah,
when I watched that movie Justice League, I think it took me also 2 to 3 nights to finish it because it's just too long.
it's just too long.
Yeah, I can
And
understand
like,
if you're younger and you have more time on your schedule. Like when I was in my 20s, I had way more time to watch movies.
yeah,
And it's funny because here on this YouTube channel, I'm planning to review a lot of movies, and I'm going to mention it now. Later in the year, we're going to be talking about the Harry Potter movies, and I'm trying to find the time to watch all of these movies,
and they're
and it
long
just
movies too.
they're long movies. They're long. They're very long. They're 2 hours plus, and they're very well made, by the way. And we'll talk about them later on. But so these were the thoughts on the Batman 2022. I didn't like it as much. I think the correct wording is uneven. You liked it, and I'm glad that you gave me your thoughts on the movie. It was a pleasure having you here on the channel. And guys, once again, on Monday, which is March 21st, there's going to be a video where I'm going to be talking about 10 things that I personally don't miss from the 90s, because everyone talks about missing the 90s, especially nostalgia. It's a thing now. Everyone likes, wearing t-shirts and stuff from the 90s. Just a couple of years ago, it was the 80s. Now it's 90s. So there's going to be a video on Monday talking about 10 things that I don't care about from the 90s. So, but anyway, guys, leave me your comments on the comment section down below. How you feel about the Batman? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. I want to hear it. So I'll be seeing you guys on Monday. Take care. Bye. So that was that. I'm gonna end it here. I'm the broadcast, but we can still talk. Don't worry. Hold on.